After more than a decade on television, the story of the Brown family has come to a dramatic close. What began in Utah as a bold experiment in plural marriage gradually transformed into a saga of conflict, manipulation, and shattered dreams. Viewers watched Kody Brown lead his 4 wives and dozens of children across states, from Lehigh to Las Vegas, and finally to Flagstaff, promising a life of unity and shared purpose. Yet, behind the carefully curated reality, cracks were forming. Arguments grew, resentments simmered, and the seemingly strong family began to fracture. Now, with several wives gone and the family structure fundamentally broken, it's clear that what once appeared to be an inspiring story of faith and family was actually a cautionary tale about control and ego. Kody positioned himself as the visionary patriarch, presenting their lifestyle as a noble cause. He framed plural marriage as both a moral mission and a personal experiment in faith, insisting that devotion to him and the family's principles was paramount. But over time, it became clear that his vision prioritized his own desires above the well-being of his wives and children. The family's financial and emotional systems, which were promoted as shared and cooperative, were anything but equal. Decisions were made under the guise of collaboration, but ultimate authority always rested with him. Moves, business ventures, and even relocations were often dictated by Kody's preferences or the ambitions of his favored wife, Robin, leaving the others to adapt and sacrifice. Businesses like My Sister Wife's Closet were presented as collaborative projects, but became a source of tension and financial strain. Robin often took the lead, sometimes overriding input from Janelle and Christine. These projects revealed an uneven power structure where one wife's vision dominated the other's contributions and labor. The family's relocation to Flagstaff, ostensibly for opportunity and a fresh start, further exposed this imbalance. Massive moves disrupted the children's lives and deepened financial dependency, while Kody's insistence on controlling the household created emotional distance. The pandemic further exposed the fractures. Kody enforced strict and inconsistent rules that effectively isolated some wives and children while privileging others. His leadership, framed as protective, often acted as a tool of control. The family's supposed unity was tested, and the cracks were undeniable. The ideal of a harmonious plural family had collapsed, leaving each wife to chart her own path to safety, stability, and independence. Christine's departure marked a turning point. She carefully disentangled her life from Kody's control, reclaiming her independence and building a new life with her husband, David Woolley. Free from the pressure of competition and manipulation, she found stability, love, and success. Janelle, too, had quietly prepared her own escape, securing financial independence and prioritizing her children's well-being over the family's fracturing system. Mary's journey was more subtle, but equally powerful. She found freedom in independence, creating a life outside the family's public drama while reclaiming her own identity. The children also played a pivotal role in exposing the family's dysfunction. They confronted Kody's authority, openly challenging the emotional neglect and unfair rules they endured. Their courage and honesty helped reveal the true cost of the family's imbalance, highlighting the importance of autonomy, respect, and genuine connection over blind loyalty. In the end, Kody and Robin remain in the relationship they sought, but it is likely one of isolation and diminishing influence. Meanwhile, Christine, Janelle, Mary, and the children have built lives defined by freedom, resilience, and empowerment. They represent the true legacy of the Brown family story, that survival, independence, and self-determination triumph over control and deception. The family experiment failed, but the individuals who weathered its storm have emerged victorious. After 18 seasons, over a decade, and more than 300 episodes, the Brown family story has reached its conclusion. What began as a bold vision of plural marriage in Lehigh, Utah, gradually unfolded into a saga filled with both hope and heartbreak. Kody Brown introduced the world to his 4 wives and their large family, promising a life of shared joy, faith, and purpose. Viewers followed them as they moved to Las Vegas, attempting to build a new life, and then to Flagstaff, chasing what was supposed to be the family's ultimate dream. Along the way, we celebrated births, graduations, and milestones, but we also saw the family's foundation crack. Arguments, resentment, and quiet frustrations grew into open conflict. The unity once promised began to splinter. At the heart of it all was Kody, the charismatic patriarch. He framed the family's public life as an inspiring mission, a brave stand for plural marriage in the modern world. The principle he preached emphasized faith, family, and sacrifice, but in practice, it became clear that it was a cover for personal ambition. Rather than a partnership among equals, the family operated under a hierarchy where Kody's desires dictated the rules. Decisions were presented as collaborative, but the final authority always rested with him. Even the family's finances, which were supposed to reflect communal effort and equality, revealed a stark imbalance. The move to Las Vegas shattered the collective structure of the Lehigh home, forcing the family into 4 separate households. While it was framed as necessary for legal protection, it also gave Kody and Robyn increasing control over the family's money. Ventures like My Sister Wife's Closet, promoted as collaborative enterprises, became flashpoints for tension. Robyn's ambitions often clashed with the pragmatism of the other wives, and what was meant to be a source of income instead became a drain on family resources, highlighting the unequal dynamics at play. The Flagstaff move, which was supposed to fulfill the family's dream of unity in one home, instead exposed the fragility of their system. The one-house plan consolidated control, creating tension and resistance from Christine and Janelle, who recognized it as a power grab. Financial pressure, geographic isolation, and emotional distance further eroded the family's cohesion. Even crises like the pandemic revealed Kody's priorities, showing loyalty to one household over fairness to all. In part 1, the picture is clear. The experiment that began as a hopeful vision of plural family life was already showing its cracks. Kody's charismatic leadership and promises of unity were overshadowed by control, hierarchy, and inequality. The foundation of the Brown family, presented as faith and collaboration, was beginning to crumble under the weight of ego and favoritism. Christine Brown's story is one of transformation. For years, she was the peacemaker, the fun-loving heart of the family, and a true believer in plural marriage. She grew up embracing polygamy as a meaningful way of life and genuinely sought the communal family happiness Kody promised. But over time, cracks appeared in her faith and in the system itself. She experienced rejection, lack of intimacy, and emotional neglect, all compounded by the patriarchal structure that prioritized Kody's needs over hers. The moment she publicly left her marriage wasn't sudden. It was the result of years of careful planning, consulting financial advisors and legal experts to untangle herself from the Brown Family LLC and reclaim her independence. Selling her Flagstaff home became a declaration of self-sovereignty, her way of reclaiming control over her finances, her choices, and ultimately, her life. Christine's victory isn't just personal, it's symbolic. Her new life with David, Woolley, represents a radical shift from conditional love to a partnership of equals. Where her marriage to Kody required sacrifice and compromise, her life with David allows her to thrive, unapologetically. Beyond romance, she has cultivated her own career and identity, no longer tethered to the Sister Wives brand. She has shown her children and the world that it is possible to leave a system that diminishes you and build a life of joy, respect, and autonomy. Janelle Brown's path to empowerment was quieter, but equally profound. Known as the pragmatic and steady force in the family, she invested years of labor, love, and finances into the household. Her awakening came gradually, a slow recognition that the system she had dedicated herself to was failing her emotionally and financially. Janelle's decision to live in an RV on the Coyote Pass property was not a whimsical choice. It was a strategic assertion of independence. By establishing a home on her terms, she reclaimed power over her life and her finances. Her meticulous planning ensured that she could support herself and her children without depending on Kody or the family pot, turning what was portrayed as a quirky storyline into a powerful act of self-determination. Janelle's triumph extends to her role as a mother. While Kody's rigid rules and control eroded relationships with his children, Janelle prioritized their emotional well-being, creating strong, unbreakable bonds. Her victory lies not only in her independence, but in the loyalty, love, and respect she cultivated within her family. She proved that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet, steady resolve to live life on your own terms, to value yourself, and to protect those you love. Together, Christine and Janelle's journeys show 2 paths to freedom, one of bold, transformative reinvention, and one of calculated, resilient self-preservation. Both demonstrate that leaving the confines of the Brown family was not a failure. It was the only logical, life-affirming choice. Mary Brown's journey is perhaps the most complex of all. As the first wife, she carried the weight of decades in a marriage that gradually stripped her of connection and recognition. She navigated legal shifts, emotional distance, and public humiliation while striving to maintain her sense of self. The 2015 catfishing scandal highlighted the loneliness and neglect she endured, but it also revealed the subtle ways Kody and Robin wielded control, using her mistakes as justification to keep her at arm's length. For years, Meri remained in the marriage, motivated by faith, financial entanglement, and a desire to honor her commitments. Leaving was not just a personal choice. It would have been a profound upheaval, threatening both her financial security and her spiritual beliefs. Meri's triumph began the moment she reclaimed her autonomy. The purchase and operation of her bed and breakfast, Liz's Heritage Inn, marked the start of her independent life. This was her creation, a space she owned and controlled, disconnected from the hierarchy that had defined her existence. She turned her focus outward, embracing travel and community, forging connections that nourished her spirit and expanded her world far beyond the confines of the Brown household. Her public reclamation of her narrative cemented her victory. For decades, she allowed Kody to define their marriage and her worth. By speaking her truth, she liberated herself from the burden of blame and claimed authority over her own life. She became a successful entrepreneur, a world traveler, and a woman who fully realized her own value. Meri's journey is proof that even in the aftermath of profound emotional hardship, it is possible to emerge stronger, wiser, and completely free. The children of the original 3 wives provide the ultimate evidence of the Brown family's failure and the triumph of resilience. For years, they were silent observers, their lives shaped by a patriarch whose love was conditional and whose rules were often hypocritical. But in the final seasons, they began to assert their voices. They spoke out, challenged Kody's control, and refused to be pawns in his rigid system. Their collective actions marked a generational shift, a rejection of the dysfunction that had dominated their childhoods. Gabe and Garrison, Janelle's sons, embodied this rebellion. Their on-screen confrontations with Kody were raw and emotional, illustrating the pain caused by his absence and rigid enforcement of rules. The support of their older siblings, who acted as protectors and advisors to their mother, underscored the children's unity and refusal to allow the patriarch to divide them. Isabel, Christine's daughter, demonstrated resilience in the face of personal health challenges and her father's abandonment, forging an independent path through college and building a life of her own. The children's voices extended beyond the immediate family. Through social media and public platforms, they shared their experiences, corroborating the struggles their mothers faced and revealing the realities of life under Kody's authority. Leon, Meri's only child, embraced their identity and independence, challenging the traditional confines imposed by the family and demonstrating the stark generational divide. Collectively, these children dismantled the carefully curated public image of the Brown family and proved that love, loyalty, and connection can thrive outside the bounds of a patriarchal system. After more than a decade of public scrutiny and 30 years of private life, the verdict on the Brown family experiment is clear. The grand plan to prove that their version of polygamy could function as a loving, stable lifestyle ultimately failed. The evidence is undeniable. A system built on unequal power, rigid hierarchy, and conditional love could not sustain itself. Kody Brown's dream did not collapse in Flagstaff. It had already been hollow for years, haunted by the fractures that grew under his leadership. The family's collapse was not caused by external pressures, but by the internal rot of ego, favoritism, and control. Yet focusing solely on the failure of the patriarch misses the larger truth. The true legacy of Sister Wives lies in the survival and empowerment of those who walked away. Christine Brown reclaimed her joy, leaving a life of quiet desperation for one of unapologetic happiness, proving that true love is a partnership, not a sacrifice. Janelle Brown demonstrated that independence is not defiance, but self-preservation, showing that family bonds are strongest when built on respect rather than fear. Meri Brown emerged from decades of emotional neglect, establishing a life defined by self-worth, autonomy, and the pursuit of her own passions. These women, once defined by their roles as sister wives, have transcended that identity. They are entrepreneurs, mothers, grandmothers, travelers, and authors of their own lives. They are free, empowered, and thriving. Their victories are tangible: successful businesses, global adventures, and unshakable bonds with their children. And they serve as proof that leaving a toxic system is not failure, but triumph. The children provide the final and perhaps most powerful evidence of the Brown family's collapse and the resilience of its survivors. They refused to be manipulated by a patriarch whose love was conditional. Through confrontation, support for one another, and public advocacy, they claimed their voices and their independence. Gabe and Garrison's courage to challenge their father, Isabel's resilience in the face of medical and emotional hardship, and Leon's journey toward self-discovery all illustrate the next generation's rejection of dysfunction and their pursuit of authentic, healthy lives. The unity and strength of these children show that love and loyalty are defined not by a father's rules, but by the connections nurtured through care, respect, and support. Kody and Robin's current life, while seemingly monogamous, is a hollow victory. They have isolated themselves from the family they once controlled, losing the respect of their children and the support of the wider world. Their pursuit of absolute control has resulted in absolute isolation, a cautionary tale of ego unchecked and power misused. The ultimate legacy of Sister Wives is twofold. It is a warning about the dangers of patriarchal control, inequality, and the weaponization of faith. And it is an inspiring story of resilience, courage, and liberation. It demonstrates that it is never too late to reclaim one's life, demand happiness, and build a future on one's own terms. The experiment failed, but the survivors won. Christine, Janelle, Mary, and the children are living proof that true strength lies in freedom, self-determination, and the courage to step out of someone else's dream and into your own. The final ruling is unequivocal. The experiment of Kody Brown's vision failed, but the women and children who survived it emerged victorious. Their triumph, their freedom, and their reclaimed lives are the enduring legacy of the Sister Wives saga. The survivors won, and their victory is the only legacy that truly matters.